Well, hello everyone. I'm Paul Elam at paulelam.com, and welcome to another discussion for Regarding Men, where we hold men in high regard and where red pill isolation comes to die. I am joined as always by my co-players in this team, Janice Fiamingo from the Fiamingo Files and Tom Golden of menaregood.com. Welcome one and all. Sarah Fuller was just 10 days ago an average soccer player on a women's soccer team for Vanderbilt. And now she's been catapulted into the world limelight with a devastating kick that she made in a men's football team. Um, well, that's the story that the mainstream media is trying to tell you, which of course is not true. What actually happened was in an abysmally losing team, Vanderbilt, who was, I think, down 41-0 against Missouri. They decided, hey, we can stick a girl in here. Maybe the coach thought that that would be a gimmick that would take the limelight off of his personal failures as a coach. But at any rate, she kicked the ball at halftime. Um, and the world went crazy. Now I understand that she has been nominated for the Courage Award from the, I think it's Capital One Orange Bowl Courage Award. Next will be a Nobel and a Fields Medal, I'm sure, that she deserves for calculating that kickoff the way she did. I'll tell you what, instead of just belaboring the point of how bad her performance really was, why don't we watch it? And then I want to make some commentary on the kick itself after it's done. And
Good.
folks, the time you got to watch closely to see the ball is actually in the air for a little bit. So, but you got to watch really closely.
Here we go.
Of them. Let's take a look at a couple of factors here. One, this is what we call a squib kick.
Right.
And squib kicks come in two varieties. One is the intentional squib, that when you're trying to perform an onside kick, you actually kick the ball close to the ground, hope it goes 10 yards, that one of the opposing players touches it, and that will allow the team who kicked a shot at possession of the ball. That's when you do it intentionally. That was not for Sarah Fuller's kick. Sarah Fuller's kick was one that would have drawn an apology from any male kicker to the team for blowing it. This was absolutely a botched kick. It was no good. It traveled a very short distance. Normally, you want your team that's receiving the ball, if your defense, you want to hold them inside the 20. And anything after that is generally considered better field position. The opposing team ended up with it on the 35-yard line, which any team would be grateful to start from the 35 on any given drive. So the kick was a squib. It was an unintentional squib. It was a squib because she didn't have the power to kick the ball the way a man would. And with all these accolades being thrown at her, one of the things they're running around, and you might have seen the helmet at the beginning of this, that it says on the bottom of it, play like a girl. Well, Sarah Fuller did. That's exactly what she did. She played football like a girl, and the world has lost its freaking mind over it, trying to pump her up to show that women can do anything men can do. And this is the sort of, this is the sort of mentality you see when retarded children learn to tie their own shoes. To me, it's the fact of the matter is that Western women's suffering from sexism. The most obvious case of sexism against Western women is their infantilization. It's the way we treat them like little kids, that when they do the slightest little thing right, We want parades, and we're dancing around in circles and lauding their accomplishments when really there's no accomplishment apparent there. That was my 2 cents worth on this, and now I'll throw it out to Tom and Janice to see what they have to say.
Well, I think in her defense, the coach did call for a squib kick. At least that's what he says. Now maybe he's covering for her.
I bet he's covering for her. Or he knew she couldn't do anything else.
Well, she's got a pretty good leg. I mean, this is a woman who kicked a ball, she's a soccer goalie, and she kicked the ball from her position as goalie all the way in front of the other goal, and her teammates, boom, put in a goal immediately. So this is not someone who's unable to kick a ball. You know, she's pretty strong as far as kicking goes. But it could have been.
I'm not buying it. I don't buy it. I'm certainly, she's an athlete, and nobody's taking that away from her. But if the coach ordered a squib, didn't order the squib, if he ordered a squib kick, she executed that poorly. Because with a real squib kick, your ball goes into contact with the ground very, very quickly and rolls on the ground. That's the whole purpose of an intentional. Plus, two other things. One, when you do an intentional squib kick, you line up your kicking team on the ball, right? Because you want them all close to where the ball's going to go downfield. They weren't lined up for an onside kick at all.
Right.
The other thing that needs to be said here, and should be, is that after she kicked the ball, typically a kicker's job is to go downfield and cover that kick because they are sometimes the last person there to be able to stop a run back. She started marching off the field. She wasn't going to have any part of what happened in that.
Well, of course, she couldn't stop a run back, right? I mean, you know, it might have been, it resulted in her death if she had tried to do so. And that's just one element of the massive entry into fantasy land that this entire episode represents to me. I mean, we've been lying to ourselves and to the world about women's capacities for decades, but this is a whole new level of fantasy in which a woman's incapacity is demonstrated there for the entire world to see, including the fact that obviously she could not tackle anybody or, you know, stop any run backs or anything like that without serious damage to her health and even maybe a threat to her life. And yet we're all pretending that this was something marvelous. My favorite part actually was, I don't think it was evident in that clip, but when you can hear the sound, it's really funny because there's this incredible cheering that breaks out when she's preparing to give the kick, but then it dies off.
And you got to remember, this was an incredible sound from a very tiny crowd, you know. So
of course, I never even thought of that.
They lost every game this year. Every game they lost. And so the crowd was minuscule, I'm sure. You know,
well, is it also restricted because of COVID, or has that had
probably
any impact?
Probably
limited. Right. But yeah, I mean, there was this mass cheering, and then as soon as the ball, you know, does its rather pathetic little dance, I think I even heard somebody going "yow," you know, kind of like, "Ooh, that's embarrassing." And
it was pretty bad. But worse than that was the announcers before, and I should have clipped the audio and put it in because the announcers before were just going gaga over this. This is the first time ever a woman has taken part in a Big Five game. La, la, la. They're just going on and on and on about that. And then it's like,
yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, I mean the lying, like it truly is the emperor's new clothes.
Oh boy.
And everybody gushing about what a wonderful thing that was and how stupendous, how proud, what a moment for girls, you know, even the woman herself. And I know it's standard now if one has anything critical to say about this episode or her involvement in it, to say, oh, we have nothing against her, she's a great athlete, all that kind of thing. But I'm sorry, I don't have very much empathy for her either. I can well imagine the the temptation when if you were asked, to go and do this, it must have been, really very a seductive opportunity. But then to stand there and offer herself all of this self-love and all of this self-congratulation, I would have had so much more respect for her if she had said, let's face it, it was a mediocre kick. Wow, that would have been really something. But she didn't. She went on and on about how.
What did she say?
Oh, well, she said exactly what one would expect she would say. She said, oh, it was a very proud moment. And I was doing this for all the little girls out there. I was doing this to show them that they can do anything they want to do if they just set their mind to it. I don't think she actually said if they just overcome the enormous sexist barriers that still hold little girls back. And I hope I stand against that tide of misogyny. She didn't go that far, but she certainly was full of self-congratulation. And that, it was just ludicrous. And of course, everybody else fawning all over her. And the one sports commentator that apparently, I forget his name now, who tweeted to say that it's equality to comment that was a lousy kick, and then he deleted his tweet immediately, but is being widely attacked for his sexism.
It's a great comment.
The whole
actually.
thing is, it is, and that is the truth.
Yes.
If we really believe in anything like equality, we'd have to speak frankly about the failure of the kick and the failure of the whole idea of a woman being involved in men's football from the beginning. That's the other standard thing you're supposed to say, right? You're supposed to say, I don't have anything against women being involved in men's football. Well, why wouldn't you have anything against it if you had any sense whatsoever? Because it's clearly biologically impossible. It would result in horrific injuries. It would deform the game. It would make it impossible to play with any kind of sincerity. So why do we have to pretend that we're in favor of women becoming involved in men's football?
Because
those
women.
are the rules, Janice.
Yeah, those are the.
He also said the obligatory, I want to be an inspiration to women everywhere. All the typical lines you would expect out of this scenario. What's also really, really funny about this story is that apparently during halftime, she lectured the rest of the team on their esprit de corps. And you know what? Two things. One, a kicker isn't even considered a real player by real players. They're considered an appendage and an afterthought in a football game. That's just sort of a necessary evil you have to have.
Right.
But you know what happens with men in this same scenario? When the FNG or the fucking new guy comes into the room and starts talking to people, the rest of the men shut them out, say, we don't want to hear this shit. And she was bragging about having lectured, come on the team to lecture all the male players, and even said that coaches came up to her afterward and said, I've always wanted to say that, which I'm sure the coaches are very shy about saying what they want to say to football players. This is just... She's turned this into a ham act.
But it was what she said, Paul, that was worse than anything. And what she told them was they needed to be cheering for their own team. From the sidelines need to be cheering all the time. When they went and played soccer, they cheered a whole game for each other, blah, 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 blah. And you should be cheering for... It's like, this is a team that's lost every freaking game. These guys are...
He wants them to cheer for a first down.
They're dejected.
That's what she said.
They're dejected. These guys are at the bottom of the barrel. They're not going to do that. She has no idea of what's going on with that team. And it's just... I wish we had a recording of her speech at halftime, because that would be just a mind blower. But there is the text of it. You can find it quoted at length in various articles on this subject. And text.
That's interesting, isn't it? Well, that's an interesting question. I read that somebody was interviewing her, and she then, I can't remember now whether she reported exactly what she had said or whether maybe indeed she sent her the text of the speech, or maybe simply paraphrased what she remembered having said. But it was incredibly arrogant.
Yes. We know one thing for sure, though, Janice. Her halftime speech did absolutely nothing for that team. Because when they went into halftime, at halftime, it was 21-0. And when the game was over, it was 41-0. So,
that's a point, Tom. They scored one less point in the second half. I'm sure that was attributed to her.
To her speech.
That's the Fuller point.
Yeah, the Fuller
Fuller brush treatment.
I mean, this is an object lesson in a way in what happens when you falsely puff up women's capacity and pretend, even when they perform abysmally, that what they've done is something wonderful. You produce young women like Sarah Fuller who actually believe that they have magical powers and who can't see the reality of their own performance and think they're entitled, simply because they're women and therefore superior, to lecture a bunch of male football players about what they should be doing and how they should be thinking about their performance and how they should be interacting with their fellow teammates. Like, it's incredible. And unfortunately, we see it everywhere in the culture. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised that this woman has actually believed her own press, her own false press, and is behaving accordingly as if she's some kind of superstar, when actually she was an embarrassment to herself and to all women athletes everywhere. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, let's see this little picture of her and see what happens.
There's her Heisman.
There it is.
Oh, well, yeah. I couldn't resist.
Wow. I mean, we really have entered even a further dimension of destructive fantasy than I imagined was possible.
I know.
I mean, what's next? Are they actually going to have a woman? Oh, sorry, Paul.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what could be next? Like, are they going to actually have a woman play in an entire, half of a game, and have all the male players trying to avoid tackling her, and so that she'll get all sorts of touchdowns, and people can say, look, women are capable of getting more touchdowns than most male players can get. I mean, it's just, I honestly think now that there are no lengths of dishonesty and, women are better ideology, no lengths that everybody won't go. And even those people who dissent from the orthodoxy have to say, oh, I've got nothing against women in football, I've got nothing against this woman, she's wonderful, and blah blah blah. It's just absolutely it's mind-blowing. Yes. Are we not going to admit that women cannot play men's football? Women can't do it. It would be dangerous.
As a society, we are not going to admit that. As a matter of fact, as a society, we're going to all pretend like we believe that Sarah Fuller could go out on the field and take a hit from a 240-pound linebacker, moving at about 25 miles an hour straight through her midsection.
Who bench presses 350 pounds.
Yes. And one of these days, this mentality will get women hurt.
And that day may be coming. There was a woman who got a full scholarship, I think Southern Methodist University, to play safety. Will the guys on the other team be out for her? You better believe they will. Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is straight out. We can thank the feminist theorists for this, because I remember reading. I read a chapter by two women's studies scholars about gender as a social construct, in which they actually make the claim that even in sports, women's different body types and women's different athletic achievements are all a result of socialization, even including, they claim, things like the fact that parents, mothers, I guess, in particular, feed their sons more meat, give their sons, a larger helping, at the dinner table and give their daughters less out of this false idea that there's something different about boys and girls. And if only they didn't do that, the girls would grow up to look exactly like the boys and to have the exact same physical capacity. So there is some portion of women and men, I assume, out there who actually believe that that is true. It's
crazy.
Wow.
It's absolutely insane.
Well, they either believe it's true or, like the rest of society, they're just browbeat and scared to say anything contrary to the narrative. So we'll all sit around going, oh, yes, women can play pro football with men. Absolutely, that can happen. I want to see it happen once where they really have to play football. And if you they've got a team that's going to have a woman playing free safety,
apparently,
we will end up talking about that, because that woman is destined for pain and injury.
You would think so.
Well, a safety, that's a high contact position.
I know. Sean Taylor.
I mean, it's amazing the lengths that we're willing to go. And of course, this has been happening in a different form in colleges all across the United States because of Title IX and all of its rules about funding for athletes. And what it's meant is a mass disproportion, because most US colleges have a men's football team, and so they want to give scholarships to each of those players, and the Title IX mandates that they must give the same amount to female athletes, and there simply is not the interest in the team sports, especially not in football, amongst women. And so it means that there's a whole bunch more money that is given to female athletes who are not necessarily as talented. And if you're a female athlete looking for a scholarship, well, you're really set up very, very well. And if you're a male athlete, it's extremely difficult to get the scholarships that would normally be made available. Like the sacrifice of quality in the sports arena, as well as in many, many other arenas, of course, as a result of this fantasy that we are willing to continue to pretend to believe in decade after decade, is really sad to see. Anyway, it's amazing.
It's awful. And, I'll be selfish about it. It's going to ruin the sport. To bring women onto the field with men. Men are screwed in that situation. They either practice chivalry and let up on them, or they play them like they're men, and then those men who do that will be demonized across the board.
The rules will change.
Yeah, they'll have to change the rules.
Just like happened in the workplace. Before women came in force, men treated each other pretty harshly in the workplace, and that was okay. I mean, that worked out. But when women came in, oh no, we can't treat people harshly.
Expect that. Yeah, that's what I guess
Rules
we can look forward to in the next 10 years.
Pulling flags.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll change it to touch football. I mean, I can't imagine how football could be made. I mean, there's just no way women could compete. They don't have the speed. They don't have the capacity to throw. Like, there's just no way it could ever happen. But I imagine we will see attempts made to make it possible, and we will have to continue to cheerlead women's pathetic efforts and to pretend that what we're actually seeing before our eyes is not what we're actually seeing.
Exactly.
Bad news for the sports that we love to watch.
Yep.
I think what Tom said too is really important, because you're right. The rules will change. What happened in the workplace forever with men is that we literally harassed each other.
Yes.
Coming into the workplace. If you were the new guy, man, people would steal your lunch, throw crap in their uniform, just really make it a point to see what you can take.
Yes.
And if you can take it, and keep going and do your job, then it's sort of a rite of passage. It's an initiative. Well, you can't do that with women, because women have to be treated with kid gloves. So all the rules change. And look at Sarah Fuller. Before her first play, before she ever even made a bad kick, she's in there as a self-appointed coach, lecturing the team on how they should act, how they should play. And this is, sorry to say, this is what comes with women in the workplace. It does.
There you go. That's it. Should.
Yeah, next we'll have, next there'll be a move to have 50% of all coaches be women, and they'll be changing the way the game is played and lecturing the players about feminist styles of, feminist formations or whatever it happens to be. I can just imagine, they'll become a whole theory of feminist coaching in football. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I agree.
What is supposed to be the
will become anti-patriarchal, I'm sure, and we'll all hold hands.
Yeah, I mean, is what's the future now for Sarah Fuller? Is she going to be brought into other games, or was this a one-off? Have you seen any discussion of that? Whether Vanderbilt is going to continue to use her?
Wasn't that the last game? I guess it wasn't.
I'm thinking pro draft. She got to at least get in the top 10 on the draft.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Can't make this stuff up, as you guys say.
How would it feel to be a woman and to see all of this stuff going on about how wonderful they are, and knowing inside that that's just not true? It must be hard, Janice.
Oh, it's not hard. It feels pretty damn good. Doesn't it? I mean,
I guess it must.
Women are not the victims here. Women are not the victims. Women are damaged by this, I would say, yes. Our egos puff up to an enormous size, and that makes life difficult on some level. But women are not the victims. It doesn't hurt. Certainly not in the short to medium term to be told that you're absolutely wonderful. I don't see this as patronizing at all. I see this as idolizing. No. This is turning women into goddesses, and most women are pretty happy to have that done.
I was kind of implying that they would realize they're not this good, but at the same time see all these accolades, and there's this tension that as a man, that tension would be hard for me to swallow.
No, well, yeah, because you've never been told that you're a victim.
That's true.
And unfortunately, when you're told that you're a victim, then even if you do see the discrepancy between the actual performance and the accolades, you have a ready-made system to explain away that discrepancy. It's because of the patriarchy, of course. And it's amazing that women have managed to do what they can do with all of the balls and chains that hold them back and all of the discrimination and bigotry that they face every moment of their lives. So no, women don't feel embarrassed. Women are, most of the women that I meet, they make these offhand comments all the time about how hard women have it. Good for you. Go girl. We need more of that kind of thing. They want more of it. This is just the beginning.
Interesting. Thank you, Janice. That was helpful.
Well, that's a scary thought.
It is.
But it is just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think this does, it does a terrible disservice to women and to girls. To have all these fits of pride and over non-accomplishments. What kind of message does that really send to girls? Is it, if you can just play the vagina card everywhere you go, and everybody has to say you're a wild success, and you're on top of the world because they can't say anything else.
That's
and
right.
Of course, I recall I had an experience once on a whale watching tour. We were out in the Puget Sound, and the captain of this boat was a woman, and the mechanic on the boat was a woman. So, of course, we broke down in the middle of the whale watching tour. And you could hear like wrenches being thrown and swearing, coming up, high-pitched swearing coming up from beneath us on this boat. And finally, they called into the mainland, and they got a real mechanic to coach this woman on how to fix the boat. This is no kidding. And after the boat was finally fixed, 5 hours we had sat there in the water. After the boat was finally fixed and they got it so that we could go back, the captain gets on the intercom and says, "See there, ladies and gentlemen, if you want something done right, you get a woman to do it."
Exactly.
And even the guys on the boat were like, "Oh, yeah, that's really great." And
That's unbelievable.
yeah, but it happened.
Wow.
And this is the same phenomenon. I mean, again, all mechanics eventually have to call on more experienced mechanics to get help. I don't begrudge
Yes.
the woman having a job working on the boat's motors. That's fine. It's all good. But good grief, why not a little credit to where she actually got mentored into how to fix the problem? And it's as soon as the guy was done telling her how to do her job, he was out of the picture and she was the hero of the boat. And everybody on the boat, except one asshole, was sitting there clapping for her.
Well, thank goodness for the occasional asshole who stands up for the truth
Really?
and recognizes reality. Yeah, well, that is the era we live in,
Yes, it is.
of just massive lies to prop up, all sorts of myths about female superiority and patriarchal oppression. It's quite something.
Crazy.
Anyway, all you can do is laugh, because if you didn't laugh, you might cry.
And if you're having trouble laughing, just watch that kick.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That should
Listen to
help
the
you out.
cheer die off.
Oh, me.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Another deep dive into gynocentrism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So enjoy football while you can, guys. I certainly love it.
Well, lucky for me, I quit watching pro football when they started kneeling.
Me too.
I still would love to watch some college ball, but if they're going to screw that up too,
Yeah.
what can I say? I guess I'll just
Yeah.
try to watch more baseball.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's always Canadian.
Sorry, Paul. Baseball is kneeling too.
There's always Canadian, but isn't that
What?
no? Don't say it.
What?
The ultimate oxymoron, Canadian football.
Oh, really? Oh, you should have a conversation with my mother, because my mother will always say that Canadian football is far superior, far more interesting than American football. Yeah, the rules, she says, make it it's more challenging, it's more fast paced, there are fewer downs, so all sorts of things. So, but you'd have to get into an argument with her. But she's
I would never
passionate about
argue with
Canadian.
Janice's mother.
Far be it from me to
Yes.
ever argue with Janice's mother.
Not today.
Not today. I think have we covered this as much as we
I
want
think-
Oh
to?
man, I think we've kicked it good enough.
We're beating a
Yeah.
dead pigskin. So,
Oh God.
okay, so we will end by saying that men
R.
Good.
That was close,
All right.
Paul. That was close. And Janice, that was very clever to go first. You can't
Guys,
miss when
take
you go
care.
first.
We'll
All
see
right.
you next time.
We'll see you
care.
then. Bye-bye.
all right, bye-bye.